A single dad skipped breakfast to help a hungry woman, and that choice started trouble he never saw coming. Elias Ward was already running on empty. No food, no time, barely $4 left in his pocket. But he still handed over his only meal to a stranger on a cold New York morning. People in suits rushed past, judging him like he'd done something wrong. One man even muttered that Elias should take care of himself before pretending to be a hero. Elias ignored it. But weeks later, when a sharp knock hit his apartment door at dawn, everything he thought he knew shifted. Before we start, tell us, from which city are you watching from? And don't forget to drop your thoughts at the end. Enjoy the story. Elias Ward had learned early that life didn't hand out second chances, so he created his own. He grew up in a row of cramped apartments in Newark, raised by a father who worked double shifts and repeated one rule until it felt carved into bone: Ward men don't take more than they earn. Elias carried that line everywhere, into adulthood, into struggle, into the quiet corners of New York City, where he now tried to build a stable life for his 8-year-old daughter, Mara. Most mornings started before sunrise. He'd leave their small Bronx studio, step over the creaky floorboard near the door, and hope Mara stayed asleep long enough to avoid hearing the stress in his voice. Then, he would catch the early train into Midtown, where he worked as a night shift custodian and filled in part-time for morning building maintenance whenever the company needed extra hands. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest work, and honest mattered to him more than anything. Money was always tight. His wallet often held a few coins, a crumpled bill, and a photo of Mara with spaghetti sauce cheeks. Still, Elias refused shortcuts, no shady deals, no handouts, no asking for help unless absolutely necessary. Pride wasn't his enemy, it was his anchor. Yet, beneath that stubborn dignity, there lived a quieter fear that Mara would grow up remembering hunger the way he did. That she would one day see him as someone who tried hard but never managed to rise. It pushed him forward, pushed him toward opportunities that appeared small to others, but life-changing to him. And despite long shifts, tight budgets, and exhaustion that clung to his bones, Elias kept believing one thing: work hard, stay true, and eventually a door would open. He just didn't expect the door that opened next. For months, Elias had been clinging to a fragile, almost unbelievable hope, one he barely whispered aloud, in case saying it too clearly scared it away. The building where he worked, a towering corporate headquarters on Madison Avenue, had an opening for a full-time custodial lead. It wasn't flashy. No one outside the maintenance staff even knew the position existed. But it came with something Elias had never had: predictable hours, basic health insurance, and just enough of a raise to stop choosing which bills to skip. The promotion was everything he needed to keep Mara steady. Her school had been hinting about an upcoming fee increase. The landlord had taped a polite but sharp reminder about rent adjustments to the building door. And the grocery store receipts kept climbing higher, even while the bags felt lighter. If Elias didn't secure this job, the cracks in their budget would widen fast. Too fast. He had already completed 3 shadow shifts and a brief interview with HR. All he needed to do now was keep his record clean, stay unnoticed in the right ways, and make it through the week without raising flags. It was a thin hope, but it was real, and losing it would cost more than he could afford. The humiliation happened on a Tuesday morning, one of those gray, heavy New York mornings when everyone moved a little slower and tempers sat closer to the surface. Elias had just finished wiping down the lobby railings when Mark Delaney, the young supervisor overseeing the custodial team, waved him into the corporate cafeteria. Mark was usually careless, always in a rush, always shifting blame onto whoever stood closest. Today, he looked more irritated than usual. "Elias," Mark said sharply, pointing to a tray of leftover breakfast items. Small pastries, fruit cups, still warm bagels. "Take these out before the morning guests complain we left a mess." Elias nodded. "Got it." He gathered the leftovers, placing some in the donation bin near the staff hallway and setting aside a small bag to take home. Employees were allowed to bring untouched leftovers that would otherwise be thrown out. That had been the rule for years. And with Mara constantly hungry after school, anything extra helped. But when Elias turned around, a group of junior executives stood at the cafeteria entrance, eyeing him suspiciously. Mark stepped forward instantly, his voice loud, too loud. "Hey, you can't take company food for personal use," he barked, pointing at Elias as if he'd caught him stealing the crown jewels. Elias froze. "You told me to clear the leftovers." Mark scoffed. "I told you to dispose of them, not pocket them." Then, turning to the executives, "We've been having issues with, supplies going missing." A few of them exchanged glances. One raised an eyebrow, another whispered something under his breath. Heat crawled up Elias's neck. "That's not true, I've never." Mark cut him off, voice dripping with false authority. "Look, Elias, we've talked about this before. If you need help affording meals, you should ask, not take from the company." The words hit harder than the accusation itself. Ask? Elias never asked. Wardmen didn't take more than they earned. "I didn't take anything improper," he said quietly. But the cafeteria had already decided. In a place where appearances mattered more than truth, the label of "the guy who steals food" stuck instantly. Within minutes, HR was involved. A meeting was scheduled. Mark's lie set in the record like a stain. And with that, the promotion Elias had spent months hoping for slipped out of reach, not because of something he did, but because someone with power found it easier to blame him than admit his own mistake. The humiliation was complete, and the damage was immediate. Sienna Caldwell hadn't intended to be anywhere near the cafeteria that morning. She rarely wandered through the building without a clear purpose. Too many people stared. Too many assumptions followed her. Too many whispered, "That's the boss's daughter." But a meeting had ended early, and she'd stepped out for a quiet moment away from her father's office walls. That was when she heard raised voices. From the hallway, she saw Mark Delaney standing stiffly, chin high, pointing at the custodian she'd noticed once before, the man who'd given up his breakfast on the subway platform. She remembered his face clearly, tired, kind, worn by responsibility. Now, he looked cornered, holding a small paper bag like it was evidence against him. She slowed her steps, listening. Mark's tone was sharp, performative. "We can't have staff taking company resources. This isn't acceptable." Sienna watched Elias try to speak, saw him swallowed by a wall of suits, who viewed him as invisible one minute and suspicious the next. Something inside her tightened. She knew that tone. She had heard versions of it her whole life. It was the voice of someone punching down to appear important. Sienna stayed near the wall, unnoticed, observing how quickly the executives bought the story. No one asked what really happened. No one questioned why a man making barely enough to survive would risk his job for a cold bagel. And when Elias lifted his hands slightly, calm, controlled, not defensive, Sienna recognized the gesture. It was the posture of someone who had been blamed before. It reminded her painfully of childhood dinners, where her father accused her brothers of small failures, only to find out later that he had misread the situation entirely. But by then, the damage was done. Reputation first, truth second. She took a quiet breath. Then she saw something else. Mark turning toward HR, nodding, pressing his narrative harder. Blaming Elias erased any shred of Mark's own responsibility. It was convenient, clean, cruel. But what unsettled Sienna most was the expression on Elias's face. Not anger, not panic, just a deep, exhausted resignation. It was the look of someone used to being dismissed because of where he came from, how he dressed, what he earned. Inside her, a line crossed. She didn't know him. She didn't owe him anything. And she certainly didn't enjoy stepping into workplace conflicts. But this was wrong. She'd seen the truth with her own eyes. She had watched him give when he had nothing. And now he was being punished for a lie. Sienna straightened, feeling the weight of her last name settle on her shoulders. This time, not as a burden, but as leverage. She wasn't going to stay quiet. Not this time. Sienna stepped into the cafeteria without announcing herself, but her presence did the announcing for her. Conversations dipped. Eyes shifted. Even Mark paused mid-sentence when he realized who was standing behind him. The Caldwell name had that effect. Doors opened, people straightened, and lies suddenly felt more fragile. "Mark," Sienna said, her voice calm but carrying across the room. "Is there a reason you're accusing one of our staff of theft without checking the actual protocol?" Mark blinked. "Sienna, I didn't know you were." "You clearly didn't," she replied, walking past him and toward Elias. She didn't smile, didn't try to soften the moment. She simply looked at the bag in his hands, then back at Mark. "Leftover items are permitted for staff donation or removal. That's been our policy for 6 years. You should know that." The executives nearby exchanged glances. Mark's posture tightened. "Sienna, he wasn't following procedure," he insisted. He was taking it for himself. "Because you asked him to clear the tray," she countered, not raising her voice, not allowing him a way out. "I heard you." A ripple moved through the room, quiet, quick, unmistakable. Elias stood completely still, the paper bag at his side. He didn't meet Sienna's eyes. The attention made him uncomfortable, exposed. Help always felt like a debt he didn't want. Mark flushed. "Maybe you misheard." "I don't mishear workplace instructions," she answered. "And I don't lie about what I witness." The cafeteria fell silent. An HR representative cleared her throat. "Well, if that's the case, we may need to reassess the incident before adding anything to Mr. Ward's file." Sienna nodded. "You will, immediately." It wasn't a shout. It wasn't a dramatic rescue. It was a controlled dismantling. A quiet, precise defense offered in front of the very people who had judged Elias seconds earlier. Mark, cornered, tried one last angle. "I was just trying to enforce order." "No," Sienna said gently, "you were trying to protect yourself." And with that, the hierarchy shifted. Not completely, not magically, but enough that the truth cracked open. Elias finally looked at her, unsure how to feel. Gratitude tangled with embarrassment, pride knotted with relief. He didn't want to be saved. Not like this. Not where everyone could see. Sienna sensed it, but held her ground. Her intervention wasn't about charity. It was about fairness. But in the public space of the cafeteria, tables, suits, and polished floors, it felt like a spotlight had been thrown onto a man who preferred shadows. The moment changed everything. Not because Sienna defended him, but because now everyone had seen it. The confrontation came later that afternoon, in the narrow maintenance hallway behind the service elevators. Elias had just finished logging his shift report when Mr. Klein, The senior building manager appeared in the doorway. Klein was older, silver hair, crisp shirt sleeves, a man who believed rules kept the world from collapsing. He had been in charge long before corporate reshuffles, long before Sienna began stepping into operations, and he didn't appreciate disruptions. "Ward," Klein said, folding his arms. "I heard what happened upstairs." Elias braced himself. "I didn't take anything I wasn't allowed to. That's not the point." Klein's voice was low but heavy. "The point is, you let things get loud. Public. You know the unspoken rule here. Keep your head down, keep problems quiet." Elias felt heat rising again, the same heat from the cafeteria. "I didn't make it public. I was accused in front of everyone." "And he let Miss Caldwell involve herself." Klein frowned deeply, as though that alone was an offense. "Do you know what that looks like? Staff drawing attention, causing division, stirring sympathy from higher-ups who shouldn't be tangled in day-to-day issues." Elias stiffened. "I didn't ask her to step in." "But she did." Klein's gaze sharpened. "And that kind of help comes with a cost. You don't want to be the man seen as needing rescue. It puts a stain on you, on all of us." There it was, the belief Klein lived by. Survival through silence. Elias took a slow breath. "Sir, I won't apologize for telling the truth. And I won't apologize for someone else choosing to do the same." Klein's jaw tightened. "You're risking the promotion." "I'm risking my dignity," Elias replied quietly. "The promotion matters, but keeping my head down while someone lies about me, that costs more." For a moment, Klein looked almost disappointed, as if Elias had stepped off a carefully drawn path. "Suit yourself," he muttered, turning away. Elias watched him leave, knowing he had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. But for the first time that day, he felt steady inside his own skin. Elias found Sienna later that evening, on the mezzanine level, near the tall windows overlooking Madison Avenue. She was reviewing documents with her tablet propped against a railing, trying to look absorbed. But when she noticed him approaching, she straightened just slightly, enough to show she'd been expecting this. He stopped a few feet away, hands in his pockets. "You didn't have to do that," he said quietly. Sienna lowered the tablet. "Do what?" "Step in like that," he replied. "You saw what it turned into. People talk. They assume things." She gave him a long, steady look. "They assumed worse when they thought you were stealing." "That's different." Elias shifted his weight. "One makes me look desperate, the other makes me look weak." Sienna blinked, taken aback. "Weak, standing there, alone, while someone lies about you, isn't weakness, it's survival." He shook his head. "Maybe in your world, not in mine." A silence stretched, thin, uncomfortable. Sienna spoke first. "Elias, this isn't about pride, it's about fairness. You were blamed for something you didn't do. I corrected it, that's all." "It's not all," he said, voice tightening. "You don't understand what it means when someone like you steps in for someone like me. People start looking at me differently, like I can't stand on my own, like I need charity." The word landed flat, bitter. Sienna crossed her arms. "If you think what I did was charity, then you're not paying attention. I did it because I saw the truth. I did it because I was there." "But the whole room thinks you helped a struggling father," Elias said, frustration edging in. "That's how they'll tell it. That's the story that sticks." "And you'd rather be lied about than helped?" she asked. He didn't answer immediately. He couldn't. Sienna softened her tone, but not her conviction. "I wasn't saving you. I was correcting a mistake. Same difference to everyone else." "Not to me," she replied. Elias exhaled, shoulders tight. "Look, I appreciate what you tried to do. I do. But you put a spotlight on me I can't carry. She stepped closer, still holding her ground. And you think I wanted a spotlight. You think I enjoy being the Caldwell who meddles in staff disputes. My father will hear about this before the day ends. Elias froze. That hadn't occurred to him. Sienna let the reality settle. We both took hits today. You're not the only one with something to lose. The tension eased, not gone, but shifted. He finally nodded once, a reluctant acknowledgement. I just need to do things my way, he murmured. I know, she said. Just don't push away everyone who tries to do what's right. They stood there, separated by background, circumstance, and the invisible wall of pride neither knew how to lower. The fallout wasn't about the lie anymore. It was about the distance between their worlds and the fact that, for the first time, neither could pretend it wasn't there. The next morning, HR sent out a building-wide memo announcing a mandatory safety audit, covering every floor, every storage closet, every service corridor. And because of the cafeteria incident and the attention it had attracted, the audit team needed both administrative oversight and on-the-ground knowledge, which meant Sienna Caldwell and Elias Ward were assigned to lead it together. Elias read the email twice, hoping he misunderstood. Sienna read it once and sighed. Neither had asked for this. Both knew it was the company's way of smoothing things over without admitting fault. Their roles were clear. Sienna handled the documentation, compliance checklists, and communication with department heads. Elias handled physical inspections, reporting equipment failures, and coordinating access with maintenance staff. For the first hour, they worked in stiff silence. They walked side by side through glass corridors reflecting two different worlds. Her neat blazer and quiet confidence. His worn work boots and practical calm. They spoke only when necessary. Storage room C needs new hazard labels, Elias said, recording notes. I'll update the compliance file, Sienna replied, typing quickly. But as the day went on, the forced proximity softened some edges. Small moments slipped through. Sienna held a door for him when his hands were full. Elias warned her about a loose step she would have tripped over. They exchanged short, almost unintentional smiles when something in the audit notes sounded absurdly bureaucratic. By the afternoon, they were moving in an easy rhythm, different roles, same purpose. When they reached the rooftop service access, Sienna paused to catch her breath. I didn't realize how much of this building you handle. Elias shrugged. Most people don't notice until something breaks. She looked at him, not with pity this time, but with recognition. You keep this place standing. And you keep it running on paper, he replied. It wasn't praise, it wasn't gratitude, just truth, shared, balanced, real. And in that quiet acknowledgement, a small bridge formed between their worlds, even if neither was ready to step fully across it. It happened late in the day, after hours of inspections, note-taking, and clipped exchanges that had slowly warmed into something resembling trust. They were on the service level, 3 floors below ground, an industrial maze of pipes, humming machinery, and echoing concrete. Elias was checking a maintenance panel when the service elevator behind them shuddered violently, then stalled with a heavy metallic thump. The two of them froze. That didn't sound normal, Sienna said, her voice tightening. It wasn't, Elias replied, already moving toward the elevator. He pressed the call button. Nothing. Lights flickered overhead. Somewhere deep in the shaft, a cable groaned. Stay back, he warned. But Sienna stepped closer anyway, instincts overriding caution. Someone could be inside. A moment later, a dull sound echoed from within the elevator. Soft, rhythmic. Someone knocking. Elias's face tightened. Maintenance crew uses this one. It could be Lewis. He pulled out the emergency radio clipped to his belt and called it in, voice steady even as tension ran through him. Sienna watched him, admiring his composure, recognizing his fear. While waiting for responders, she crouched beside him, close enough to hear the controlled breath he was forcing into calm. "This building relies on you more than anyone sees," she said quietly. He didn't look at her. "And yet I'm the easiest to blame when something goes wrong." That truth hung in the space between them. Minutes passed, slow, heavy, and the elevator team finally arrived. They worked quickly, stabilizing the car and freeing the trapped worker. Louis stepped out shaken but fine. Elias helped him sit, his concern genuine and immediate. Sienna stayed back, watching the ease with which Elias sheltered others, the natural leadership no one above him bothered to notice. Later, when the area cleared and the elevator was shut down, they walked together through the dim hallway. The adrenaline had settled, leaving honesty in its place. "You're trapped here," Sienna said softly. "Not physically, but by how people see you, by how little they pay attention until they need something." Elias glanced at her, surprised by her accuracy. "Maybe. But you're trapped too." She frowned. "By your last name," he answered. "By expectations you didn't choose. By people waiting for you to mess up or fix everything." Her breath hitched. No one ever spoke to her like that. Direct, human, without fear or flattery. "I feel like I don't get to own any part of my life," she admitted. Elias nodded. "I feel like I don't get to rise in mine." Two different prisons, same feeling. For the first time, they truly saw each other, not as a Caldwell and a custodian, not as privilege and struggle, not as rescuer and rescued, but as two people trying to climb out of places they never asked to be. It didn't erase the distance between their worlds, but it turned the distance into understanding, and that changed everything. The public reckoning unfolded the next morning during the building's weekly operations briefing. A meeting Elias never attended but had been asked to join for clarification. He arrived quietly, standing near the back wall, while department heads filled the conference room with polished shoes and expensive cologne. Mark Delaney sat confidently near the front, arms crossed, ready to retell his version of the cafeteria incident. But before he could speak, Sienna stepped forward with a folder in her hands. "I'd like to address last week's misconduct report," she said. A hush spread instantly. She opened the folder, revealing time-stamped security logs and a written statement from the kitchen staff confirming leftover items were authorized for removal that morning. Mark's expression cracked. "These records show Elias Ward followed protocol," Sienna continued. "What they also show is a supervisor attempting to shift blame to avoid responsibility." Murmurs rose. A few executives exchanged surprised glances. Mark's posture collapsed, inch by inch. Sienna didn't raise her voice. She didn't dramatize. She simply laid the truth bare. And then, unexpectedly, Elias spoke. "I'm not asking for favors," he said. "Just fairness." It landed with a weight that cut through every polished title in the room. Mark was formally reprimanded. Elias was cleared. And for the first time, the room looked at him with respect, not suspicion. 2 weeks later, Elias found himself back at the same subway station where everything had quietly begun. The cold platform where he'd skipped breakfast to help a hungry woman. The morning rush sounded the same, but something in him felt different, lighter, steadier. He held a small paper bag in his hand, 2 simple breakfast sandwiches and 2 cheap coffees. Not charity, not desperation, just a gesture he could finally afford without fear. Footsteps approached. Sienna stepped up beside him, hands tucked in her coat pockets. She wasn't dressed like an executive today. No blazer, no polished stiffness. Just a person, meeting another person where life actually happened. "I heard the final decision," she said softly. Elias nodded. He had been officially awarded the promotion. Quietly, without ceremony, but fairly. No shortcuts, no pity, just earned. "I wanted to thank you," he said. "You don't owe me thanks," she replied. "Maybe not," he answered, offering her one of the coffees. "But I wanted to anyway." She accepted it with a small, warm smile, one that held no power imbalance, no awkwardness, no distance, just mutual respect. They stood together on the platform as a train approached, the cold air shifting around them. A circle quietly closed, and a new one quietly began. Sometimes the smallest choices, sharing a meal, telling the truth, standing up when it's easier to stay silent, become the turning points that reshape entire lives. Elias's story reminds us that dignity can survive hardship, that courage doesn't always look loud, and that kindness has a way of circling back when we least expect it. If this story touched you, made you pause, or reminded you of the power each of us carries, let us know. Like, comment, and subscribe for more stories that stay with you long after they end.